Kia ora. Hello and welcome to the Kiwi Sim Complete Mod Users Guide, a video series that covers how to use mods with your American Truck Simulator or Euro Truck Simulator 2 games and transform your trucking experience. This video series consists of 3 parts. In this video, part 1, we will be looking at the basics of modding ATS and ETS2, preparation and tools, setting up game profiles, where to get mods, how to install them, and finally how to activate them in-game. The second video will dive into more detail on maintaining a large mod list, load order priorities, duplicating profiles, adding and removing mods, and how to handle game updates. The third and final video will look at how to recover corrupted profiles and restore from backups, diagnose problems, and general troubleshooting with mods. Future videos will explore some of the more specialized customizations you can use with your games, such as config edits, field of view settings, multi-monitor functionality, and post-processing injectors, to name a few. So let's take it from the top. What are mods? Well, to put it simply, mods or modifications are add-ons created by members of the community to change or enhance some aspect of a game. Now this could be sounds, textures, gameplay itself, almost anything really. Modifying a game to your personal tastes can be a fun hobby in and of itself, and although it can be a little daunting if you're just getting started, I firmly believe that everybody should be able to enjoy mods. So if you are completely new to the world of modding ATS and ETS2, then these videos are aimed at giving you everything you need to begin your own journey. Now to start off with, there are 2 common types of mod for ATS and ETS2. Mods from the Steam Workshop, and mods from other sources such as a website, Facebook, or a message board. I'll dive into the differences a bit more later, but it is important to keep in mind that you can safely use workshop mods and non-workshop mods together. There are no restrictions on doing so. The next 2 sections in this video will go over how to properly get set up for modding. It'll take a little time to cover, but don't worry, it only needs to be done once, and with the foundation sorted, you'll be ready to get cracking. Now before we go any further, just a general warning. Adding mods to your ATS or ETS2 profile comes with an inherent risk of irreversibly corrupting your save. The vast majority of the time you won't have any problems, and there are of course a couple of things you can do to help mitigate the risk, which we will be covering. Now personally, I've been using the same modded profile in both games for more than 5 years now, and although I have experienced save breaking issues in that time, using the troubleshooting and recovery techniques that we'll outline in video 3, I've always been able to get my save back on track. But just keep in mind there is always a small chance that if something does go wrong, you may not be able to recover that save. So the first steps are to get your PC prepared. Now that means installing our basic software tools and just making some settings adjustments so that things are easier moving forward. Now firstly, I recommend you change the download behavior of your web browser so that it asks you for a save location rather than automatically saving everything into the downloads folder by default. If you are using Google Chrome, then the 3 vertical dots in the top right corner are where you want to start. Select Settings from the menu, and then click on Advanced and Downloads, and then simply make sure that the flag is enabled to ask where to save each file before downloading. If you use Firefox, similar process, from our menu at the top to Settings on the General page, and scroll down to enable the setting to always ask where you save your files. I also recommend that you create a specific folder somewhere on your PC where you can store your mod files, downloads, and any other tools that you might be using. In future, I'll simply refer to this as your download folder, and for example, I have a series of subfolders created so that I can better organize the mod files that I will be working with. Now, because you're likely to come back to this location fairly frequently to install or change mods, I'd also suggest pinning it to your quick access. That just allows you to find it more quickly when you need to. One other thing to check here is to make sure you have file extensions visible. Now to do that, you go to the View tab in the top of your Windows Explorer browser, and then simply make sure that the tick is in the box for file name extensions. Next up, we need to get our software tools installed. At the very least, you'll need WinRAR. I also recommend 7-zip and highly recommend Notepad++ for reading and editing the various config, SII and log files that we'll be looking at later. While we're at it, we can also grab SII decrypt. Although we won't be using it in this particular video, it will come in handy later again. The links for all of these are in the description below. So first of all, get hold of WinRAR from the website by clicking on the 64-bit installer button and save that to your downloads folder. Next up, 7-zip. Simply grab the 64-bit exe download and save that to your downloads folder. For Notepad++, select the latest release available, scroll down and then click the installer download for 64-bit. And once more, save that to your downloads folder. And lastly, SII decrypt will take you to a sharemods.com link. Here you'll need to click the orange button in the center to create the download link. You'll notice that we do have to wait a few seconds, but once that has completed, the page will refresh and you should get a download link, once again saving that to your downloads folder. So with all of those downloads completed, what you'll want to do now is install WinRAR, 7-zip and Notepad++, simply using the default install settings. Once that's completed, we can extract the SII decrypt file with 7-zip and selecting extract to, which will create a new folder for us containing the SII decrypt file. But with those tools, you will now be able to view, check, extract, modify almost any file that we need to look at or change for the purpose of modding your games. With our software tools installed, the next step is managing your in-game profiles. I recommend having 2 or even 3 separate profiles. The first one will be your clean or vanilla profile. This is unmodded, and you'll typically use this when a new game update comes out and you need to wait for your mods to catch up, or if you wish to play in an unmodded Convoy multiplayer session. Your second profile will be your modded profile. This is most likely going to be your main profile going forward. Now, you probably already have a profile that you have been using, so if you want to keep your progress, you can use this as your modded profile and simply create an additional one to take its place as your clean or vanilla profile. You may also want to create a testing profile. This can be used for testing new mods, mod updates, or mods with game updates to check for errors and compatibility problems before you actually start making changes to your main profile. And we'll look at how to duplicate your modded profile in a later video. So for now, if you want a test profile, just create another clean profile and leave it at that. You can of course have more profiles if you wish. Some map mods, for example, require a clean profile, and if you wish to play Truckers MP, then you should typically use a fresh profile for that as well. Creating a new profile is pretty simple. All you need to do is click on the Manage Profiles button, and then select the New Profile button in the bottom right. Here you can enter the name of the profile, select your driver picture, preferred truck, company logo, gender, etc., and of course company name, and whether or not you want to use the Steam Cloud. Now personally I prefer not to use the Steam Cloud as I find it easier to maintain my backups because those files are local and you don't need to worry about how they might get synced to the cloud. It is important to note that Steam Cloud is not a backup service, it is simply a file sync similar to Dropbox or OneDrive. Now you can enable or disable the cloud function at any time simply by editing your profile and unticking the box. I already have my profile set up of course, so feel free to pause the video and create yours now. You may need to run through the brief intro tutorial, but that should only take a few minutes to get through. Once you've finished creating your profile or profiles, if you're new to the game, load up your clean profile. Alternatively, if you have an existing profile that you plan to use for your modding, then load that one instead. And once the game is loaded, what you want to do here is go through and ensure that your controls, audio, graphics settings, and so on are all configured as you want them. What we're going to do is create duplicates of these settings across all of your profiles. So keep a note of the profile that you choose to load at this point so that we can refer back to that later. Once you're happy with your controls and settings, exit the game, and what you want to do is browse to your Documents folder and Euro Truck Simulator 2 or American Truck Simulator. Now this is a location you'll be coming back to a lot, so I recommend you pin that to your quick access like we did with our Downloads folder. This folder contains a number of things that are very, very important for modding. Firstly, your game log file, your config file, profiles folder, and a mod folder. Now if you don't have a mod folder, create one now. Make sure you name it mod, M-O-D, not mods. Now your profiles are stored within the profiles folder. And inside here you will see another set of folders named with a series of letters and numbers. Now don't worry about remembering these, that's simply the name of your profile but in hex format. So how do we know which profile is which here? Well, one method is to check the date modified while you have detailed view enabled. Basically the most recently opened file corresponds with the last one you accessed or saved in game. However, without loading the game, we can still check to find out which is which by translating hex into a string. Now, a link to a website to do this is in the description below. And what you want to do is copy the name of that folder and paste it into the field at the top. And you will then see the name of the profile translated underneath for you. So we can see that this profile is my modded profile. So this is the one that I will be copying my controls and settings from. So now that we know the name of the profile, we can open that folder and have a look inside. And here you'll see the save folder, which contains your various save files, config, config local, and controls. These are the files that we will be transferring to your other profiles to ensure that you have consistent settings across all of them. At the bottom, we also have a profile.sii file. Now this file is encrypted, but we will be using this in later videos, so it's worth knowing that this is where you'll find it. So what we want to do here is copy these three files, config, config local, and controls.sii, and paste those into each of our other profiles that we have created. And by doing so, we can ensure that controls and settings are consistent across each. So once that's done, you should now have 2 or possibly 3 or maybe even more profiles, each with the same controls and settings for everything that you need to do. At this point, what you want to do is take a backup. Now this is something you should be doing anyway. If you can't afford to lose it, back it up. And this is true for anything on your computer, not just game saves, photos, documents, and so on. If you can't replace it, make sure you back it up. Now having regular backups of game profiles is the best way to keep your save games safe. If something goes wrong, restoring a backup and losing half an hour to an hour of progress is a heck of a lot better than not having a backup and having to go back dozens or hundreds of hours with lost progress. The easiest way to take a backup is to simply copy the entire profiles folder and save it to a different location on your computer. For example, the downloads folder, I have one called backup. Now this is on my file server, but you could save it to your PC downloads folder, to another PC, some online storage service like Dropbox, a USB drive. Whatever you choose to use, the important thing is that you do it on a regular basis. In addition to our manual backups, SCS Software have been kind enough to include an automated backup process for both ATS and ETS too. Anytime a game version update is released, a copy of your profiles folder is created and renamed with the relevant version number. As you can see here, my American Truck Simulator has quite a history of these backups. Now we'll go through the process of recovering a backup profile in the third video in this series, but for now it is useful to know that these can be used as a recovery point if something goes drastically wrong. Just keep in mind that reverting to a profile backup can result in significant progress loss if you haven't been maintaining your own backups. So as always, make those backups yourself and you'll minimize the risk of losing progress. So the next thing we're going to do is apply some launch parameters or launch options in Steam. Now, launch parameters are special commands that we can give to the game as it starts up to change certain settings or behaviors. And when you start using large numbers of content-heavy mods, traffic packs being a good example, having the right launch parameters can help to keep your game stable. So in your Steam library, right-click on ATS or ETS2 and select Properties. And here you'll see at the bottom the Launch Options field. Now there's a few things that we're going to add here. First of all, some quality of life changes. First up, no intro. Now this removes the startup splash screens and loads the game directly to the main menu, which will save you a little bit of time. The second thing will be unlimited log. Now this allows the game to write the log as large as necessary in order to record all of the events from start to finish. This is primarily a troubleshooting tool, which we'll be looking at in more detail in the third video. And thirdly, we will add sysmouse. Now this forces the game to use your Windows mouse settings for the scroll speed. This is primarily useful for multi-monitor setups, but you may find it helps your mouse the same. Now these next settings will not always have an impact for everyone. They're not a magic solution for performance issues, but they can help to avoid memory errors when using large mods, such as those traffic mods I mentioned earlier. You may need to experiment and decide whether or not they are suitable for your system. All values that I refer to here are megabytes. So the first setting is pool size. Now this sets the memory pool available to the game and typically should be set to half of your total RAM. There's some common values for this on screen for reference. The next one is max resource size. Now this changes the amount of memory allocated by the game for loading any given mod file. The default for this value is 22. And thirdly, max TMP buffers size. Now this setting determines the total memory pool or buffer for loading mod files. The default for this is 112. To explain this in a bit more detail, TMP buffers size divided by resource size gives the total number of loading buffers available for the game. The default settings give you a total of 5 with a small allowance for overflow. So by changing these values, we can increase the number of buffers and the size of those buffers to help the game when loading large mod files. Now for 16 gigabytes of RAM, I suggest starting with these values. pool size set to 8192, max resource size set to 40, and max TMP buffers to 1000. So once complete, that means that your launch options will look something like this. So once you've added those settings into your Steam properties, you can close that window, and now we're ready to start looking at some mods. Alright, on to the good stuff. Now the simplest way to mod your ATS or ETS2 game is via the Steam Workshop, so that's where we'll start. From the game page in your library, select the Workshop link, and you'll be taken to the Steam Workshop. Here you'll find a range of mods from the most popular, most subscribed, most recent, including selections from your friends, a list of quick links on the right hand side, most popular, top rated, most recent, and of course the search box in the top right. We'll start with the top rated of all time, and if we take Sysil's Megapack as an example, the first thing you should check on any mod workshop is the date that it was last updated. Unfortunately, there are many mods on the workshop that are quite literally years out of date. Unfortunately, some people often don't bother checking those details and try to use those mods without realizing that the mod is either completely non-functional, incompatible with the current game, completely broken in some way. So always check that date and just see if it has been updated recently or if it has been left to languish for some time. It's not a guarantee, but it does give you a bit of a clue as to whether the mod is in a good state or not. Next up, check the description. You'll often find information here relating to version compatibility, incompatibility with other mods, the function of the mod in question, any particular notes around load orders, and just general information that can be useful, plus of course donation links and supporting the mod authors. Further down, you'll find potentially discussions or comments, although some mod authors have these disabled. Now this is not always particularly helpful, but if the updated date for the mod is a little older, you may find notes in the comments relating to whether or not a version is compatible with the current game. Coming back up to the top, you may also find some mods have a link to collections. Now these are a very useful way to get a bunch of mods together at the same time. I maintain a collection for my own mod list, for example. In this case, Sysel has a number of different mods that he has grouped together, and making installation very straightforward by allowing you to simply click on the subscribe all button. However, going back to the main page, once you've decided on a mod you wish to use, all you need to do is click on the subscribe button. It's that simple. Steam will now download the mod, and once complete, you will be able to activate the mod in-game and start using it. We'll cover that process in a moment, but first let's move on from the workshop and have a look at some mods off the workshop. Now, any mod that is not hosted on the workshop is referred to commonly as a local mod. They need to be downloaded and installed manually, and although they're not through the Steam Workshop, they are fairly simple to load. Now, finding mods outside the workshop can be a little bit tricky, as there are a few extra things that you should be aware of. I highly recommend you have an ad blocker installed for your browser before you start delving too deep. You should also be careful of where you source your mods. Unfortunately, there are a number of websites out there which re-upload or rehost mods without giving proper credit to the original author, or even without permission in the first place. Now, modding is a community effort, and in order to maintain the integrity of that community, it is important that mod authors are given the degree of respect they deserve for their work, and that we don't go out of our way to make their lives more difficult. We're all in this together to get a better game after all. So personally, I recommend sticking to the official SCS forums, Truckee mods, or direct links from mod authors themselves, until you're more comfortable navigating the vast and somewhat turbulent waters of the Trucksim modding community. And the third thing to keep in mind with non-workshop mods is that there is a large and growing market for paid mods. Now this is most commonly trucks and trailers, and paid mods are a bit of a grey area legally speaking, so SCS does not allow them to be linked on their forums. And this means you can typically only buy these directly from mod authors, and they generally won't have a license for their work, so rely on reputation for the quality of their work and regular updates. There is a small element of risk here, although most of the well-known mod authors are reliable. Unfortunately, things can change without warning, and you potentially could end up with nothing for your money. Now, don't be too afraid of that. I use paid mods myself, so I'm not trying to put you off, but if you do want to delve into that side of the mod community, just make sure you go in with your eyes open. So let's take a look at the SCS forums. Now here you'll find a forum category for both ATS and ETS2, and within that a further category for mods, which is then again broken into multiple subcategories. Now browsing through here, you will typically find that most mod authors include the version number, game version number potentially, and also the updated date in the thread title itself, which makes life a lot easier when you're trying to navigate and look for specific things. Now, what we'll look at here is a high quality weather mod, Realistic Brutal Weather by Kaz. Currently version 7.1 will typically be on the front page of the forum category Others. So when we select that, we can see first off the basic information, including features and the latest updates that were made to the mod. Scrolling down, you'll see a selection of screenshots and samples of what the mod is capable of. And right down the bottom, we get to the download pages and potentially donation links and older versions for those who might be using a previous game version for some reason. Now when we click on these links here, you'll see that this is actually broken into two parts, so you will need to download two files here. But clicking on the link or opening it in a new tab will take you to sharemods.com. Now when you're visiting share mods, just check that the upload author is the same person who actually created the mod. If it's not, then there is the potential that you're not getting the correct version. Clicking on the Create Download Link button will begin the timer, and once again we get our download link, which we are going to save into the downloads folder that we created right at the start of this process. Once you've downloaded both parts, you'll find them in your downloads folder as .rar or RAR files. Now if we open one of those up, you'll see it contains just an SCS file, which means we need to extract this before we can use it. So to do that, right click on either of the two archives with 7-zip and just select Extract here. Once the extraction is complete, you'll have a single combined file. You don't need to extract both of these separately, just doing one will automatically do the other. Once you have this file, you'll then need to copy it into your mod folder. So if you recall, that is in our Documents ETS2 or ATS folder, and the folder name is mod. Hopefully you added that to your quick access earlier. So all we need to do here is copy and paste. And once that copy has completed, the file will then be able to be activated within the game itself. Now there are 3 different types of mod file that you may come across when looking at local or non-workshop mods. RAR or RAR files, SCS files, and zip files. Now these need to be handled slightly differently, so we'll go through a few examples of what they are and how you need to treat them. So here we have 3 different mods. One is a zip, Brutal Weather, which we've already seen is a RAR file, and a trailer patch, which is an SCS file. Each of these appear as they were downloaded. Now when you look at a zip file, the first thing you should do is open it up and have a look at the contents. If it contains a series of folders and files, like this here, particularly a mod description and a manifest file, then that zip file can be used as is. There is no need to extract it, you can simply copy that straight into your mod folder. If it contains an SCS file, much like the RAR for Brutal Weather, then you will need to extract it first and then copy it to your mod folder. If you've downloaded a straight SCS file, then that can immediately be copied into your mod folder. Regardless of which of these file types you deal with, once you've got the appropriate file in your mod folder, you can then activate that in game. So let's have a look at that now. So now that we have one non-workshop and a workshop mod subscribed and downloaded, let's have a look at how the mod manager in-game works. First of all, make sure you have your mod profile selected. On the right here, you'll notice that there is a little icon, and when you mouse over it, it says no mods in use. This will show the total number of mod files being loaded whenever this profile is selected. So what we're going to do here is click on the mod manager button. Now this will take us to the mod manager itself. This is a very simple tool to activate and deactivate mods and manage the load order. Now you'll see here that this warning comes up when you first enter the mod manager, and these icons here are worth noting for compatibility. However, there is one major caveat to keep in mind. If a mod has a grey or even a green icon, that does not necessarily mean it is actually compatible with your game, so don't take that as being an absolute guarantee that your mods will work. So when we have a look at the mod manager itself, on the left hand side you can see the mods that we have loaded. The Steam Workshop mod has a little Steam Workshop icon, and you'll also notice the Workshop button up the top right here, which will actually open the Steam Workshop in the overlay. So you can go through and subscribe to new mods from within the game itself. At the top here we have a search button, and you can also change the order in which mods are listed and filter by category if you wish. You may also favourite mods with the star icon in the top left hand corner here, and the I button will show the mod information. If it's a workshop mod, you can then link to the workshop page directly or unsubscribe from it. If it's a non-workshop mod, then all it will do is show you the mod information as pertaining to that particular version. On the right hand side here we have our active mod list. This also manages our load order. Now we'll cover the details of how the load order works and how you should manage it in the next video, but for the moment we can activate these two mods simply by double clicking, and on the right hand side we'll see that both mods are now active. Now as a preliminary load order point, the weather mod should be loaded above the mega pack. The priority of our weather mod is higher than that of our mega pack. Once you're happy with the changes that you've made here, it's a simple case of clicking on the confirm button, which will then take you back to the main menu, and that's all there is to it. Congratulations, you now have a modded profile. You'll see up in the top right that our icon shows two mods in use. At this point you can start playing the game, or you can continue modding and customizing the profile to suit. And let's be honest, that's probably where you're going to go, otherwise why would you be here? Now the next video we will cover the implications of load order priorities and how to maintain that, so have a look at that when you want to delve into this a bit deeper. In the meantime, I hope you found this video helpful, and if you have any questions please feel free to ask in the comments below or contact me via the links in the video description. Until next time, thanks for watching and happy trucking. Haere rā.